let's talk about the books that I'm planning on reading in April.
These
and
videos
I'm going to be
always look so fun.
predicting
This
what
is
I
what
think
some
I'm going to
computer
read.
books
They're
sound
my
like
favorite
when I was
books.
typing
I
on
saw that
something very
thinking
These are my completely unfiltered, honest opinions on something like the trend of
TikTok, an app known for its wide variety of communities that branch off into even more sub-communities. These communities can range anywhere from dancing and celebrities to Harry Potter and frogs. If you have a niche hobby or hyperfixation, you can bet your bottom dollar that there is a space specifically for that niche on TikTok. Today, however, I will be focusing on one such community labeled BookTok. BookTok gained traction during the pandemic, a time where literally everybody was bored out of their minds and needed anything to do. And it has since then grown into one of the more mainstream communities on TikTok. So mainstream that popular bookstores such as Barnes and Noble have entire book talk sections filled with books that gain popularity from the site. Book Talk primarily offers a space for book recommendations, book hauls, and book reviews. It has also helped lesser known authors branch out and gain their own success that otherwise would have been a lot harder to achieve. Because of Book Talk, reading itself has become much more popular, and I feel like it's become less likely to find someone who doesn't read than back when I was like in middle school where I actually felt embarrassed to read. Now, while Book Talk has increased engagement with reading, it has also contributed to a shift in reading habits that prioritize speed, quantity, and consumption over comprehending what is actually being read. And additionally, many of the books it popularizes contain misleading covers with explicit content that are targeted towards younger audiences. And all of these kind of raises concerns about Book Talk's influence on the younger audience and concerns about the overall literacy in this generation of readers and book influencers.
To me, it matters less the art that you consume, but how you consume it.
In his article in The Shallow World of Book Talk, Barry Pierce critiques the performative nature of online reading culture, where the label of reader is often valued more than the act of reading itself. As Kate Wagner says in her article, Don't Let People Enjoy Things, simple escapism and entertainment value is not the aim of art, though it might as well be the goal of enormous media conglomerates. Both of these articles highlight the shift toward simple escapism and entertainment packaged for mass consumption, rather than a deeper engagement with the art. And on platforms like BookTok, reading has evolved from a private intellectual pursuit into a marketable aesthetic, where curating a bookshelf or posting book hauls becomes a display of identity and status. Being a reader has even become an aesthetic of sorts. An aesthetic that promotes consumerism over readerism, the idea of looking intellectual, and it has even become so desirable that celebrities have their own book stylists.
The appearance of those who can engage in offline activities seems to carry an almost aspirational and out of reach coolness quality.
Oh, is it showing? Oh, I hate when my feminist literature is sticking out of my back pocket.
BookTok's emphasis on speed, trendiness, and surface level reactions reflects a broader cultural trend: anti-intellectualism. Anti-intellectualism is the rejection or distrust of critical thinking, education, expertise, and analysis in favor of simplicity, emotion, or surface level enjoyment. It's the idea that thinking too hard about something is unnecessary or even bad. An example of this would be people saying things like, "It's not that serious," or "let people enjoy things," whenever anyone criticizes anything in literally any way.
Sometimes it can be so toxic, like the character assassinations that you see for someone just sharing an opinion about a book. Maybe they're saying, I didn't love the pacing of this book because it felt a little too slow, or maybe the themes of this book didn't really resonate with me. I didn't find the characters very believable, or I thought that the peripheral characters were underwritten and they didn't add anything to the plot. Someone will then say, I hate you.
But as YouTuber Alicia states in her video essay, Book Talk, Brain Rot, and Why It's Okay to Be a Hater, saying let people enjoy things also implies that you do not want to think about what you are taking in. It implies that you know that what you are consuming is bad and that it has points of valid criticism, but you're choosing to ignore it.
But to critique something is, to me, the greatest form of adoration. To fully immerse yourself in the contents of a piece of media, to explore the intricacies it holds, is to love it further. If we remain uncritical, we fall into the hands of capitalism. Capitalism thrives off the consumer believing they have the power of choice, only to be given slightly different, equally meaningless products. Capitalism wants us to succumb to this attitude that nothing is that deep, that we shouldn't be reflecting or analyzing things when our energy could be better spent elsewhere, such as consuming the newest romance novel or buying this new limited edition version of a fantasy series.
This emphasis on mindless consumption doesn't just benefit capitalism by encouraging constant buying, but it also shapes how we engage with the information itself. As we grow used to all of this short form styled content, our ability and willingness to think critically and process complex ideas begins to decline. Studies even suggest that reading comprehension and attention spans are worsening in the younger generations. And the rise of social media and fast-paced digital content is most likely what's playing a role in this decline. Essentially, attention is a muscle. And with all of this fast form content that we are consuming daily, we're not working that muscle. We're so used to constant stimulation, and we have basically been trained to expect the main point of a video to be said immediately. The need for material to be spoon fed to us, to be handed to us on a silver platter, and to reduce the amount of work we put in to verify information or seek out resources is derived from anti-intellectualism. In the era of social media, we no longer feel responsible for educating ourselves further from the shallow overview a 30-second TikTok can provide. We have been conditioned to be stagnant and feel disdain for those who choose to dig further. Learned helplessness is the idea of people not bothering to research or verify information themselves because they've just gotten used to having everything explained for them in simplified, spoon-fed content. And this has been heavily apparent all over the internet, not just TikTok. People just don't know how to do their own research anymore. I mean, a person will literally explain exactly what is going on in a video, or it'll say exactly what is going on in like a caption or a little thing in the corner, and people will still ask the same questions about it repeatedly, even though it was mentioned in the video.
One thing I've learned since being on social media and becoming a content creator that scares me is just how unresourceful people can be. Stick with it. Like, I can make a video right now saying, hey guys, I love this amazing lip gloss I got from Fenty Beauty in the shade Hot Chocolate at Sephora for $21. I'll put all the information also below in the caption. And y'all will still comment on the video saying, what shade is that in? What brand is that? Where'd you get that from? How much was it? And if I respond to the comment saying it's in the video, it's in the caption, oh, I didn't see it. Oh, no. It's not that you didn't see it, it's that you didn't look for it.
It seems like people just don't have the energy to read captions, but they do have the energy to find the person's other social media accounts just to leave more hate comments. So there's this girl who on her TikTok, she reenacts Reddit stories that she finds online. And in her videos, they say either on the actual video or in the caption that they are Reddit stories. They are not her actual experiences or how she actually thinks. She's just sharing stories she's found online. And yet, everyone in the comments thinks that she is being so serious.
People are going on my Instagram and finding a photo of my husband, child, and I and commenting on it things like, run from her, like, this poor man. And I'm like, guys, that was a Reddit story, come on now. Also, I made another Reddit story video where I actually put in the top right corner that it was a Reddit story and I put it in the caption and people still didn't read that. Granted, this got me a lot more views, but the whole image thing is getting out of control, so I'm just gonna start saying it in the videos again. I'm not mad at anyone, but this is definitely a lesson learned that if you put something in the caption, just know people aren't gonna read it.
Let's be honest, tech literacy is a skill. And it seems that nobody is teaching it anymore. I mean, it's literally intertwined with reading and research, critical thinking, and comprehension. You need to have good tech literacy to have these skills. And of course, it doesn't help that the US, as well as other countries, but mostly the US, is currently facing a literacy crisis. Kids don't know how to read anymore.
Are you saying that right now in the United States, a parent can send their child to school and it's not guaranteed if they will learn how to read?
Yes.
I think people would find that alarming.
Yes, it is alarming.
In many schools, especially in the US, phonics based teaching, where children learn how to sound out letters and syllables, has recently been replaced with methods that promote memorizing whole words. Instead of learning how to build literacy skills that help them tackle these new materials, they're relying on recognition, which more often than not fails them as texts become more complex. This specifically is contributing to these lower reading comprehension skills in our younger generation.
Oftentimes, we may get a third grader who can't read at all, that we have to go back to basics.
You're saying for decades you've had third graders walk into this building who can't read at all?
Yes, we have. Yes. It's more common than not. I had a ninth grader once that came in, and he couldn't read at all. And he didn't know his letters, and
Ninth grade.
ninth grade.
Many teachers are even reporting being pressured by their school districts and administrators to pass students to the next grade, even if they've missed a significant amount of class time or haven't met the academic benchmarks required for them to move on. While this policy might aim to avoid stigma or overcrowding in certain grades, it also is resulting in these students advancing without the skills that they need, creating even wider gaps in their literacy and learning as they move forward in school.
Are you saying schools were just graduating kids who didn't fundamentally know how to read?
Yeah, it's happened all across the country.
And many of the younger kids who grew up on devices aren't being taught foundational computer skills like how to search for information effectively, or evaluate sources, or even how to navigate a web browser. Instead, their experience with the internet is limited to these pre curated apps such as YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, where content is literally fed to them by an algorithm. I mean, they're probably great at like swiping and scrolling, but they may struggle with tasks like using Google or typing in URLs or fixing basic tech issues because they've never had to independently explore or problem solve online.
I was reading this post about a teacher who does a lot of online tutoring for kids in like middle school to high school or whatever, right? And she was saying that absolutely all of them are completely computer illiterate. They only understand how things work through apps. And on top of that, critical thinking, reading comprehension, and just fucking thought skills have been going down significantly over the past decade or so. Like, for example, in Canada, which is where I'm from, 49% of adults have a reading level that is under high school level. In the United States, 54% of adults have a reading level under that of a grade 6. So that means that people can read, they can understand things, but they can't fully comprehend it. They can't connect things, they can't make these connections, they can't search for deeper meanings, they can't use basic skills because they're not being fucking taught.
Like in elementary school, I explicitly remember being taught keyboarding skills or how to format documents on Word or Google Docs, and even how to make basic presentations. But my brother's generation, or Generation Alpha, hasn't had the same experience. Instead, schools are assuming these kids are already tech savvy just because they grew up with tablets and smartphones. But in reality, them knowing how to tap on an app is not the same as them knowing how to navigate file systems or type on a computer effectively or how to use a spreadsheet. Without these skills, they're missing out on deep and important tech literacy skills. And if kids aren't even being taught the basics, like how to read deeply, think critically, or use technology beyond scrolling on apps, then of course that's going to shape the kind of readers that they grow to be. Overall, this culture of surface level engagement, rapid consumption, and tech/media illiteracy doesn't just affect the readers, it's also actively changing the publishing industry itself.
I cannot get this off my mind. Is BookTok the next fast fashion?
If you don't know, fast fashion refers to the rapid production of cheap, trendy clothing designed to mimic current trends. Brands prioritize speed and low costs, encouraging consumers to constantly buy new clothes and discard their old ones, leading to a cycle of overconsumption and waste. And just as fast fashion prioritizes quantity over quality, the book industry is now churning out easily marketable, trend driven stories designed to be consumed quickly and discarded just as fast.
It really seems like book review and book recommendation content, which is what BookTok used to primarily consist of, has been replaced in recent months by these videos where content creators just show huge amounts of books they bought and which they may or may not actually read. In order to please the algorithm and grow their platforms to the point where they can make a living as a content creator, book influencers also try their best to churn out as much content as possible. Except reading a whole book and articulating your thoughts about it takes a little bit more time.
Reading has essentially become a competitive numbers game where the quantity of what you're reading is valued way more than you actually consuming what you're reading. And many BookTok users often feel pressured to read quickly just to keep up with the current trends, myself included. And it feels as though there's this whole idea in the book space that to be a reader, you must read dozens of books a month and constantly increase your reading goals every single year, or else it feels like you're failing at something. And honestly, you can see how this pressure is actively changing how people read as well. There's these book influencers admitting to skimming or only reading dialogue, and it really shows a decline in deep reading practices. There are even some who openly admit to skipping full sections or even complaining that there are too many words on a page.
First of all, the writing is so tiny. Second of all, why are the pages so filled with so many words? Like, what the
Does anyone else skim read their books? And by skim read, I mean only read dialogue. Like, you don't read description. Because personally, I don't care what someone looks like. I don't care where they are. I don't care what they're doing. I care about the conversation.
I like pages that aren't filled with this many words. Like, literally every page is like, look at this. Are you f***ing kidding me?
So what ended up happening is I'm sitting here reading this new book and I turn the page and there's a paragraph on the page this long. It goes from the top of my Kindle to the bottom of my Kindle. It's that long. And I skipped it, okay? I skipped it.
But at what point does the amount that we're making ourselves read start to turn what was once a hobby into a chore? I saw a book influencer give tips on how to read more books a year. They were listen to audiobooks on 1.5 speed, skim long passages of text, read novellas, and graphic novels to hit your reading goals faster, which is fine if your goal is to consume as much as possible. It's the same when I see people arguing that audiobooks, graphic novels, etc. count as reading. The beauty of being an adult is there is no teacher or parent you have to justify your habits to. There is no one besides you keeping track of what you are or aren't reading. You're free. Anyway, I get it. Hitting arbitrary metrics you set for yourself, i.e., reading X number of books a year, can be satisfying. Love to hit an arbitrary metric, but man, isn't literature about so much more than conspicuous consumption? It feels as though we've started to associate reading with productivity way more than any other hobby. There are tons of videos titled How to Read More Books or How I Read 100 Books in a Year, as if reading more automatically makes you a better reader. And with that mindset, it's no wonder that people are turning to all these shortcuts such as skimming or only reading dialogues. They need to keep up with the numbers. And on BookTok, this overconsumption and competitive style towards reading tends to feed into one specific genre: romance.
Since this type of writing is so easy to get through, people on BookTok are constantly looking for the next thing that they can consume, and they end up with shelves upon shelves of average quality literature that they will not reread and they wouldn't even gift to somebody that they care about. So they just end up throwing them out and buying more of the same.
But here's the thing. This obsession with mass producing easy, fast entertainment is not a new idea. Pulp novellas or pulp fiction were short, cheaply produced stories published in inexpensive magazines or books from the 1920s to the 1950s. The term pulp comes from the cheap wood pulp paper that they were printed on. These novellas were usually fast-paced and oftentimes prioritized entertainment rather than the literary quality of them. And they often covered genres such as romance, crime, sci-fi, and adventure. In the 1950s especially, publishers marketed these pulp romances towards housewives and focused on promoting quick escapist reads that could be bought cheaply, consumed quickly, and tossed aside. Very similar to the disposable reading culture we're currently seeing in the present day on BookTok. And speaking of disposal, you've heard of book hauls, but have you heard of book unhauls? Book unhauls feature creators showing stacks of books that they're getting rid of that they oftentimes didn't even read and only bought them because they were trending at some point. And sure, some of these books are going to be donated, but realistically, if the book was only bought because it was a trend, who's going to be buying them from a charity shop months or years after their viral moments have already passed? And also, how is it so easy for people to get rid of tons of books at a time? These books are not cheap. I mean, I know firsthand just how expensive books are. Like, I don't even want to know how much all these books cost. But of course, it's much more easy to buy bucket loads of books at a time when buying from a billionaire who can afford to slash prices just to push out their smaller competitors, which raises its own concerns about sustainability and ethics, but that's like a whole other topic that I can talk about, so I digress. And much like fast fashion prioritizes trendy designs over durability and originality, many BookTok books rely heavily on familiar tropes rather than offering truly compelling or innovative stories. Publishers are increasingly prioritizing stories that rely on these popular familiar tropes because they're so easy to market and almost always guarantee quick sales. On BookTok, these tropes become hashtags, trends, and viral recommendations, encouraging readers to seek out the next version of the same comforting formula, similarly to what we saw with the Pope novellas. And now, while tropes themselves aren't inherently bad, this over reliance leads to a cycle of predictable surface level stories. And many of these books tend to blur together, making them easily forgotten or discarded in favor of the next trend. And all of this further fueling the fast fashion like cycle of consumption on BookTok. And now, while the economic side of this overconsumption is worrying, the content of some of these popular books is also starting to raise concerns in myself as well as many others, especially with the way romance novels are presented with these cutesy illustrated covers that often tend to hide explicit adult content and sometimes are even being marketed towards a younger audience. Research done by Romance Writers of America shows that romance novels are read by considerably more women than men, with only 16% of romance readers being men. So, of course, with women being the main readers of the genre, publishers are going to market to them specifically, which also means having covers that will sell to their target audience. So, as technology started to get better, a lot of romance books started to switch from the iconic oil painted covers to photographs and real people on the covers. And the covers also started to get a lot more explicit, and the lines started to be blurred between the romance and the erotica. As Alice Lang states in her digital book, What Does a Happily Ever After Look Like? In 2011 and 2012, about a third of the covers still had someone who was at least partially unclothed, almost always a man. In many cases, covers focused on the couple's physical intimacy rather than the nature of the plot. However, this started to change in the next coming years. By 2016, only 18% of covers had someone unclothed, falling consistently over the next few years to 10% or less from 2019 on. And now we're down to only 3%. And most covers are starting to actually focus more on the emotional intimacy. And most covers actually have the two love interests apart rather than clinging to each other. And in the past few years, we've also returned to the illustrated covers, but they're not as realistic as the oil paintings were. Now it's sort of like a bunch of blobs that all look the same. And there's also a focus of kind of showcasing the characters' hobbies or jobs rather than just their physical attributes and lust for one another. And this is actually something that I really enjoy about the new romance covers, especially for women characters, because it focuses more on like the personality of the characters rather than them just being a love interest or objectified. And I feel like it adds more depth to them. However, the problem that I, as well as many others, are having with these covers is that A, they all kind of look the same, and there seems to be really no individuality, but also that B, most of the times the books themselves have really explicit content that you wouldn't know right away based on looking at the cover. So let's play a game. I'm going to show you two book covers. One of them is going to have zero explicit content, and the other one is going to be almost entirely explicit content. So here's your two covers. First, we have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. And then we have The Curious Sofa, a pornographic work by Ogdred Weary. You have 5 seconds. Go. If you guessed The Curious Sofa, you are incorrect. The book actually has zero explicit content despite it being listed on the cover, whereas Icebreaker is 50% explicit content despite the cover looking like something out of an animated original Disney Channel movie. So what happens when books like this fall into the hands of people who weren't expecting or wanting explicit content because the cover gave them zero indication that it would have so much of it, let alone any at all? And I mean, it's basically impossible to differentiate between young adult fiction and the highly erotic adult fiction, which is obviously not meant for children. But a child or parent isn't going to look at a cover like this and immediately assume it has that type of content. Instead, they're going to see this cute, innocent, cartoonish cover and assume that the content inside will mirror it.
We have Icebreaker, we have Desire or Defense, we have My Phony Valentine, Rival Darling, and Pucking Wild. Desire or Defense, Rival Darling, and My Phony Valentine are not smutty at all, whereas Icebreaker and Pucking Wild are dirty. Like crazy. There are teachers who have shared on TikTok that 10-year-olds were coming into school carrying a copy of Icebreaker, and ostensibly from the outside looking in, it looks like a book written for teenagers, for young people. But actually, it isn't appropriate for a 10-year-old to read at all.
You guys, what's your friend reading?
Icebreaker.
And how old is she?
10.
I have seen one too many preteen girls convincing their parents to let them buy super inappropriate books in the Target aisle. So today I'm going to show you the books that look innocent but are actually pure smut and are not appropriate for young eyes. Starting off with one that I think gets every single parent is Icebreaker and Wildfire. These look so innocent. It's like cute little cartoon covers. Like, what could be in here that's not appropriate? Pure spice.
What?
Behind you!
Oh my god!
I mean, it is so common for this miscommunication from covers to happen. And of course, parents should absolutely be monitoring what their children are reading. But in their defense, a lot of the times they don't have the time to sit and look through all of the books that their children are reading to see if they're appropriate or not. And in all honesty, these books look like they're written for a younger audience. So you can't really blame the parents for not looking deeper. And I feel like it's also important to know that publishers are gaining a ton more sales, partially because of these covers, because they're starting to target younger readers of romance, which of course is largely increasing their demographic and sales.
Romance sales grew by 52% from 2021 to 2022, showing social media's influence on the genre. But also, when you increase your target demographic to people much, much younger, naturally, you increase your potential market size. Because cynically, doesn't that kind of incentivize publishers to hide the sexually explicit content of their books? Because it means that young people are more likely to buy them or not be stopped from buying them.
But like, what happens when these books that are definitely not for younger audiences get pushed towards young readers anyways? There's an article called Why Does Every Romance Novel Have the Same Cartoon Cover Right Now that touches on exactly that. The lines between YA and adult fiction have often been vaguer than expected. We had to create the entire new adult section to explore the space between them, and the audience crossover is big. Cartoon covers often feel like a way to take advantage of that, although the nature of this trend seems doomed to lead to multiple instances of reader miscommunication. So, how do we prevent this, if at all? Do we just, add a sticker on the cover that says explicit content like they do for albums, or like, I don't know, put like a spice rating on them. Like, imagine you pick up a book and you just see like the citrus score on the cover. I, I don't know why that's so funny to me. Like, I would actually be so embarrassed. And so, like, there's the issue of people then going back to being embarrassed to be seen reading these more explicit books in public, and it could potentially lead to a drop in sales, which of course publishers are going to do anything to try and avoid that at all costs. So it really is a kind of tough moral dilemma to figure out in a way that keeps everyone happy, which is near impossible. And while BookTok has done a lot to help people find a joy in reading, gain community, or find success from their own books, there's also a ton of performance rather than genuine passion. Like, between the pressure to read tons of books and the trendy book hauls and the misleading covers, it's easy to forget that reading is supposed to be enjoyable, not just content. And I'm not shaming anyone for liking what they like, but I feel like it's also worth thinking about how much of what we're reading is really for us and how much of it is just for an algorithm. When books are easily consumed and quickly discarded, we lose the opportunity to form real, lasting connections with the stories. And while there's nothing wrong with fun, escapist reads, we should still be asking ourselves, are we reading because we love it, or because we feel like we have to keep up with some made up expectation? And I mean, some of my favorite books weren't the ones that I saw trending, they were the ones that I randomly stumbled across on the bottom bookshelf at the back of a bookstore that I had never seen in any monthly wrap up or recommendation. And they've stuck with me far longer than any 5-star book talk read ever has. And as author Neil Gaiman once said, picking 5 favorite books is like picking the 5 body parts you'd most like not to lose. Books are supposed to mean something. They're supposed to stay with you. So take your time, read what speaks to you. Don't be afraid to go off trend. Recommend books that actually moved you, not just the ones with the prettiest covers or the latest trending romantasy. And most importantly, let yourself read for the love of it. Because isn't that what being a reader should really be about? Signing off. That was so cringy, ew.